Revealed, the sinister rules of a haunted fire lookout in British Columbia's terrifying wilderness. Lily stared at the dense woods surrounding her cabin, heart pounding against her ribcage like a frantic bird trapped in a cage. The silence was deafening. That was where the horror began. She'd heard stories back in Crestwood, tales of the fire lookout's haunted past mingling with the whispers of the ancient woods. But out here, where the age-old pines towered like solemn giants, the stories felt all too real. Everything was supposed to be different when she accepted this seasonal job as a fire lookout. The beauty of the wilderness was meant to provide solace. But the chirping of birds morphed into eerie whispers that slithered through her mind, gnawing at her instincts. Was it just her imagination? Or was the mountain keeping secrets? As darkness settled like a heavy shroud, Lily's exhaustion claimed her. She drifted into a restless sleep, only to be jolted upright by a deafening crack, branches snapping outside her window. Her breath hitched. Fear coursed through her veins. "It's just the wind," she whispered, but a chill crept up her spine. Glancing out, she froze. Symbols carved into trees like timeless warnings stared back at her, strange glyphs, twisting into shapes she dared not name. No. She couldn't let fear win. But dread rippled beneath her skin. Shadows flitted just beyond her line of sight. Whispers echoed in the wind, warning her of the rules she must follow. Panic clawed at her throat. She felt them, unseen eyes watching from the darkened woods. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Nights grew longer. The chill turned from a bite to a gnaw. Trying to escape the oppressive silence, she rummaged through her cabin. Among the dust and remnants of the previous lookout, she discovered chilling newspaper clippings about disappearances tied to fire seasons long past. The stories dripped with dread, a hidden terror, preying not just on the land, but the souls of those who dared to tread there. She called home, hoping to feel a semblance of normalcy. But her daughter's voice was drowned out by a series of unsettling texts from an unknown number. The words felt laced with malice, indicating someone, or something, was watching them both. Lily's heart plunged. Her friendships back in Crestwood felt tenuous, bound by some unspoken pact of silence around these woods. Desperation clawed at her. Each attempt to reach out to local authorities was met with smirks, dismissive waves, as if they knew something she didn't. Was it the mountain's spirits testing her? Or a far more sinister force tugging the strings from the shadows? In one final act of resolve and fear, she clutched her flashlight and stepped into the forbidding night. She had to uncover the truth behind the rules. But as she navigated through the dark terrain, she stumbled upon a hidden ritual site, overwhelming her senses with dread and revelation. Markers of the past whispered what was hidden, a confluence of power, fear, and sacrifice steeped in her own ancestry. As the wind picked up, the ominous whisper she'd first heard came alive, calling her name, taunting her with the reality that her family's safety entwined with the haunting secrets of the land. She stood frozen in the dark, acutely aware that the true horror was just beginning. Lily's breath came in ragged gasps as the whisper grew louder, morphing into a cacophony of sinister voices swirling around her. Each hexagonal symbol she had seen carved into the trees glowed faintly in the darkness, pulsating with an energy that felt almost alive. Were they marking her? Guiding her? Or warning her away? The primal fear rooted in her bones demanded she flee, yet an inexplicable force held her captive in place. "Get out!" she finally shouted, voice trembling, but her words were swallowed by the night. It was as if the woods itself scoffed at her plea. The ground felt unstable, shifting beneath her feet. Sickeningly, the symbols slithered in her mind, teasing at the edges of her understanding. She stumbled forward, thoughts racing. She had to find the hidden truth. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the fading remnants of what seemed to be a bonfire, smoke-blackened stones surrounding a chilling pit. The night deepened around her, shadows braiding into grotesque forms as she surveyed the site. There were remnants of artifacts, rusted trinkets hung on branches, and bones, small and twisted, buried in the dirt. A sense of dread gnawed at her heart. Were these the remnants of the lost? A sickening wave of realization crashed over her. These weren't just stories. This place had stolen lives, feeding on the very essence of those who had dared to come here. A sudden rustling behind her drew her attention. She turned, flashlight trembling in her grip. The beam landed on a figure shapeless, yet undeniably present, lurking just beyond the reach of the light. A chill lanced through her, copulating with fear, making her remember the feeling of being watched. The whispers now changed to a low growl, echoing warnings that curled around her like smoke. "Leave this place," she demanded, though her voice cracked, betraying the terror within. Instead of retreating, the figure stepped closer, dissolving into the dim light, revealing nothing but darkness draped in the cloak of trees. And then she felt an overwhelming rush of anger and sorrow from the woods themselves. Shapes emerged from the smoke, unformed shadows converging at her feet. They reached for her. She recoiled, heart pounding as cold sweat dripped down her back. The very ground beneath her seemed to pulsate with agony, and she couldn't help but feel the weight of those who remained bound to this place. "Please," she whispered, "I just want to go home." For a moment, the shadows froze, the whispers silenced as if contemplating her plea. Then, like a surge, the chorus intensified. Fingers of darkness now brushed against her skin, pulling her gaze toward the ground where the artifacts lay. They compelled her, an unseen force urging her to acknowledge the truth buried there. It took everything she had to break the grip of the overwhelming dread. She turned, bolting deeper into the woods, branches clawing at her clothes. Behind her, the shadows roared, a cacophony that threatened to swallow her whole. Her heart thundered in her ears as the whispers of the lost mingled with her racing thoughts, demanding she remember them, learn their stories. She burst out of the darkness into the clearing, panting, tired. In the distance, the lookout tower stood like a beacon, her only refuge. But as she ran, something grabbed at her, pulling her back with chains of memory and agony. Those same texts from earlier echoed in her mind. What did they want? The stories, the warnings, they were all interwoven. Her life above would not protect her from the horrors below. As she approached the cabin, the shadows were closing in, fueled by her unresolved fears. Something was waiting for her inside. She fumbled for the door, heart hammering against her chest. What rule had she overlooked? The weight of her ancestry bore down like a vice. A final scream echoed through the trees as she reached for the handle. And then, just before she turned it, a voice, deeper than the whispers, resonated in her mind. The mountain shook, beckoning her to make a choice. Would she confront the darkness, or would it swallow her whole? Lily's hand trembled as it hovered above the door handle, the cold metal feeling like a live wire against her skin. The shadows writhed close behind her, their whispers clawing at her mind, filling it with blurred memories of fear and sorrow. It was a struggle between flight and fight, but deep down she knew that escape offered no real sanctuary. "Don't open it," a thought screeched through her head, but what choice did she have? The darkness pressed in, its hunger palpable. Taking a deep breath, she twisted the handle. The door creaked open, revealing an uninviting darkness that seemed to drink in the meager light from her flashlight. Beyond lay an emptiness, thick and suffocating. She stepped inside, the floorboards groaning under her weight like a wounded animal. With each step, she felt the atmosphere shift, as if the cabin itself were alive, scrutinizing her every move. As she swept the light around the room, she noticed traces of what were once human lives. Dust-covered furniture lingered in the corners, and a tattered map of the area hung limply on the wall, its faded ink barely legible. But it was the fireplace that caught her eye, a shallow pit of ashes that seemed to pulse with a faint, eerie glow, reminiscent of the bonfire she had fled. Eager voices seemed to emanate from it, soft at first but building in a frantic chorus, flooding her ears with fragments of stories lost and dreams shattered. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her, the noise echoing like a thunderclap inside her skull. Panic surged through her. She sprinted toward the door, flinging her weight against it, but it wouldn't budge. No escape. Don't you see, a voice hissed, slithering through the air. You're a part of this now. Who? She choked, her heart racing so fast it felt like it might explode. What do you want from me? There was a moment of chilling silence followed by the piercing laughter of a child, a small, haunting sound that sent shivers down her spine. From the corner of the room, a figure began to materialize, coalescing from the shadows. At first it was just a spectral outline, growing more defined as it stepped closer. The ghostly child looked at her, eyes dark and hollow. You must remember, Lily. You must remember the fire. As if triggered by a hidden mechanism, images burst into her mind, visions of the past crammed tight with frantic faces, flames licking at the edges of laughter, and whispers turning to cries. The cabin had not just sheltered the living, it cradled all those who had perished in this cursed place. Remember it? She managed to whisper, fingers clenched tight around her flashlight, now throbbing with an unsettling energy. Why? Because you are bound to the stories, it urged, reaching for her with tiny, gnarled hands, and only by recalling their truths can you survive the night. Every instinct in her screamed to run, but as she recoiled, something gripped her ankle with icy fingers. She looked down, horrified to see the shadows thickening, coiling around her legs as if they were scratchy ropes trying to tether her to that moment, a moment alive with agony and regret. Help us! A chorus of voices echoed through the space, resonating around her, pressing her to acknowledge the truth of what had happened. Heal us! Lily felt the weight of desperation clinging to her, pressing into her from all directions. She was caught in a tapestry of memories, woven with fear and sorrow, and as the child grinned wider, teeth sharp like shards of glass reflecting her every fear, she knew she stood at a precipice. She had to choose. With a swift thrumming in her heart, she jerked the flashlight toward the shadows, determined to confront the face of her nightmare. But just as she prepared to speak, a tremor shook the cabin, rattling her bones and jarring the walls. Then it came, a thunderous roar outside, reverberating through the very ground beneath her. The cabin felt alive and terrified. Something had awakened in the woods. Lily froze. What had she disturbed? Now she stood between the memories of the past and the horrors of the present. As the light flickered erratically, shadows seemed to race, swirling around her, eager to envelop her in their darkness. Would she awaken the souls tied to this haunted place or become one of them forever? The roar outside intensified, making the cabin shudder like a beast in pain. Lily gripped the flashlight tighter, struggling to keep her bearings. The shadows were no longer just coiling around her legs, they lunged towards her, feasting on her fear. She could feel their cold breath on her skin, sending chills coursing through her. Lily! The ghostly child pleaded, and it took a step closer, desperately extending its hand. Remember the fire. You can help us. But how? The flames flickered across her memories, blurring the lines between what was real and what had haunted her for years. She could see them, the faces. So many faces, lost in agony, fingers reaching out in unison, pleading for salvation. Her heart raced. Stop! She shouted as the shadows surged, threatening to swallow her whole. With a swift motion, she thrust the flashlight into the blackness, its beam breakdancing across twisted forms, revealing glimpses of despair, past souls trapped in a web of sorrow. They lingered, their faith in her radiating despair, a cacophony of whispers swelling to a deafening crescendo. You need to understand. The fire, it took us, it keeps us. Would it ever end? The sound cranked higher, every chorus piercing her mind. Lily felt herself spiraling, crushed under the weight of the cries, battling against an unseen force. As the voices melded, they twisted into an inescapable memory of flames consuming everything, families, laughter, hope, all reduced to ash. No. I won't forget. She screamed, and her words cut through the darkness, if only for a moment. The shadows hesitated, shivers rippling through their forms. Then you must choose, the child urged, its voice sharper now, a desperate edge slicing through the thick despair. You must choose to remember or be lost forever. Lily's stomach turned, each heartbeat echoing like a war drum. She was treading on ancient ground, a place drenched in tragedy that was not of her making, yet she felt tethered to it in ways she couldn't understand. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe as time twisted, threads of the past colliding with the present. Suddenly, the fireplace flared, igniting the entire room in ghostly light. Shadows danced like marionettes, shrieking with a frantic energy as the faces became clearer. She was caught, trapped in a kaleidoscope of emotions, every flicker revealing their stories, each one more tragic than the last. Then a figure appeared, larger than the others, looming from the depths of the shadows behind the child, a man, spectral yet soaked in rage, pointing directly at her. You knew. You can't hide from what you've done. A wave of nausea hit like a brick. The air vibrated with echoes of her past mistakes, eyes she'd hurt, choices she wished she could take back. No. It wasn't my fault. The vessel of her guilt threatened to drown her, taking the form of a roaring inferno, the rage of the damned rising in unison from every corner of the cabin. Then confront it. The voice rose, blending with the wind howling outside, a primal call that shook the very foundation of the space around her. Confront what? She gasped, struggling to stand strong as emotions threatened to topple her into the abyss. What can I do? The shadow child's hollow eyes bore into hers, unwavering. Only the truth can set you free. But what truth? A shudder crept through her, the walls vibrating, reverberating her doubts and fears. Every moment felt like an eternity as she gazed into those empty eyes, the choices of her past battling for dominance. With the ground trembling beneath her feet, Lily felt a sudden wave of resolve wash over her. She needed to make a choice: face her own truths or succumb to the haunting darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. And then silence. The cabin held its breath, and for the first time, she felt the weight of all those lost souls hinge on her next move. Find it. You must act. The child urged, panic creeping back into its voice. Lily stood there, poised at the edge of something profound. She could feel the pull of the past, a force that beckoned her, promising either salvation or destruction nestled tightly within the shadows. Help us. The shadows howled, their energy palpable. She closed her eyes, breath hitching, and a single, undeniable truth slipped through her mind like a thread unraveling a tightly woven fabric. What awaited her beyond this moment? Would she regain her freedom or lose herself for good? The horrifying answer lingered just out of reach as a deafening crack ruptured the silence, sending shivers down her spine. And then she heard it, a soft whisper that echoed through the chaos. Lily, it's your turn. What choice would she make when faced with the ghosts of her own making? The air felt electric, saturated with dread. As the whisper faded, the cabin seemed to warp and pulse, a living thing teetering on the brink of revelation and dread. Lily's heart raced as her mind raced alongside it, grasping for clarity amid a storm of chaos. Lily. The shadow child's voice pierced the atmosphere, its urgency driving the invisible stakes deeper. The fire, remember who you lost. You can't hold it back anymore. But how could she face it? The fire had been an inferno of memories, swirling with guilt and shattered trust. The truth flickered just out of reach, taunting her like the shadows wriggling against the wall. Everything was taut, longing for release. With fierce determination, she spun to the child, her breath hitching in her chest. What if I can't? What if the truth destroys me? The dread pooled, thick as smoke. Then it destroys you like it did us, echoed the spectral figures trapped in the shadows. Their whispers formed a legion, hounding her, relentless. You must open the door, and just like that, something snapped within her. The wall of inhibition crumbled, paving the way for a hidden memory, buried deep in her heart. She felt herself rising, the darkness pulling away from her as she stood atop her past. The monster in the woods, she announced, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. It was always there, lurking right outside. Waiting, a shadowy figure, almost human, seemed to materialize in front of her. Unmistakably sinister, its eyes flickered like dying embers. "No, Lily, that demon was born from you." Something heavy dropped in her gut, an understanding she could never accept before. It surged in her chest, tightening like a vice. Could she truly be responsible for the horror her family endured? It was an accident. She stammered, the memories amplifying like an echo of her own guilt. The truth threatened to overwhelm her. "I didn't know. I wanted to save them." "But you knew the risks," the tall figure growled, mocking her. Its voice lowered, slinking through the stale air. "You stood by as the fire consumed them. You thought you could erase it." Each accusation burned through her like unseen flames. She faltered, each word striking her with clarity, exposing the blister of her heart. "I didn't mean to. Didn't he mean to?" The ethereal man echoed, laughter rippling through the shadows around them. "You created it. The fire was your creation, and it spread as freely as your neglect." The cries of those lost souls filled the room, layering over her, a painful harmony of anguish echoing and resonating. They were right, there was no escaping this truth. They had become part of the darkness now, and it was her fault. Lily staggered backward, her voice barely a whisper. "But if I face it, if I confront it, I could lose everything." Suddenly, the cabin shook, splintered wood groaned under the pressure of her collapse. "No!" she shouted, the pain and anger vibrating through her like a tempest. "I refuse to be a monster." "Your denial is a trap," the child insisted, voice trembling with urgency. "You have the power to release us if you can grasp your truth and transform it into fire." Tension peaked as she grasped the flashlight, its beam flickering in the intense shadows. Everything around her seemed to hinge on her next choice, fight or succumb. The shadows pressed in like dark tendrils, hungry for her surrender. "Is that what you want?" she yelled, defiance igniting. "To keep me trapped? No. I will not be chained by your anguish." The howls of the damned merged into a cacophony, raking through her spirit. The walls quivered, brightening with an otherworldly glow, a blinding truth flashing within her. Then, amidst the tumult, the ground split beneath her and she slipped. She clawed at the air, falling into an abyss, surrounded by an unfathomable darkness. "Lily!" echoed the plaintive calls of the shadows, the child's voice growing fainter as she plummeted deeper. What awaited her below? Would she find redemption or be consumed entirely by the inferno of her own creation? A hard impact halted her descent, and just when she thought she might be free, she felt the cold, relentless grip of the despairing shadows closing in again, and in that moment, she understood, she had to let go. But could she brave the fall into truth? Or would she drown in her own darkness forever? The darkness was suffocating, wrapping around her like a shroud. Lily gasped, but the air felt thick, almost tangible, resisting her attempts to breathe. She was not alone. Whispers lurked in every shadow, curling around her thoughts in serpent-like coils, twisting and tightening. Too late, a voice crooned, chilling her to the bone. It was familiar yet foreign, a distorted echo of her own. The realization sank in deeper. The shadows weren't just a part of her past, they had become her identity. She stumbled, her feet breaking through the debris of her once familiar sanctuary, the cabin reduced to a landscape of memories and regrets. A sudden flash of light pierced through the darkness, illuminating a twisted tree looming ahead. Its branches reached out like skeletal fingers, beckoning her closer. "Face it, Lily. Face what you've hidden." The urge to flee surged within her, but her feet felt rooted to the ground. Involuntarily, she took a step toward the tree, drawn like a moth to a flame. As she approached, the faces emerged from within its gnarled bark, mournful faces twisted in despair. They were those she had lost, their eyes hollow, accusatory. "Why?" they asked in harmony, their voices a chilling symphony of sorrow. "Why did you abandon us?" I tried to save you," Lily pleaded, her voice fracturing under the weight of their grief. Tears spilled down her cheeks, reflecting the ghostly light of the surrounding darkness. I didn't want this. I wanted to protect you. Protect us. A figure materialized from the shadows, stepping into the dim light. It was the Shadow Child, its form shifting, a blend of innocence and the bitterness of betrayal. You were the spark, Lily. You lit the fire. No. The scream erupted unrestrained, as she fell to her knees. The ground felt as though it could swallow her whole, the earth vibrating beneath the weight of her guilt. You don't understand. The child echoed, brows furrowing in disappointment. Look around. The fire never left you. You carry it still. You think you can bury it, but it's alive within your heart. It grows. Lily clutched her chest, as if to smother the searing flames igniting inside. Memories spiraled within her mind, flashes of laughter turned to screams, of warmth dissolving into ash. The growing light dimmed, darkness pooling within her as if the fire were consuming her instead. Suddenly, everything shifted. The whispers rose to a howl, merging into an unholy cacophony that rattled her teeth. You'll never escape. They shrieked. You will always be one with the fire. Then, as if responding to her fear, the shadows surged forward, engulfing her in twisted tendrils. Their icy grasp tightened around her limbs, pulling her further into the depths of her past. You have to relive it. You can't hide from what you made. Stop. She gasped, the terror ripping from her throat. The ground beneath her trembled, flinging up ash and embers from long-forgotten pain. She could feel them rising, swirling around her like ghosts in a frenzied dance. Each face, each scream was a reflection, a part of her spiraling into chaos. Out of the maelstrom, a flicker of hope emerged. The flashlight slipped from her fingers, illuminating a path out. You can't force me back. She threw her head back defiantly, fire in her eyes. I will not be consumed. In that moment, the shadows reeled back, stunned by her defiance. Silence hung heavy in the air, contrasting sharply against the earlier turmoil. But Lily knew this silence was just a respite. The darkness would surge again. Remember, you are the fire, the child's voice filtered through, softer now yet no less haunting. Lily gathered her strength, preparing for the inevitable confrontation ahead. She would either burn in this darkness or rise from the ashes anew, but would she be strong enough to confront the truth? The ground trembled again, a distant rumble echoing ominously as shadows began to swell around her once more. And then she heard it, a familiar laughter, low and sinister, cutting through the silence. Welcome back, Lily. With her heart racing, she realized this wasn't just the darkness of her past, it was a living nightmare, one that was just beginning. The fire was not merely a memory, it was a harbinger of what was still yet to come. What had she truly awakened beneath this cursed ground? The laughter hung in the air like a choking fog, wrapping itself around her throat. Lily's heart hammered against her ribcage, a frantic drum in the oppressive silence. Who is there? She shouted, her voice trembling. Show yourself. With each passing second, shadows coalesced into a familiar figure. It slinked from behind the twisted tree, limbs elongated, eyes glowing with an inhuman luminescence. It was a ghostly apparition of someone she once knew, but twisted into something terrible. You wander into darkness with nothing but your regrets, it taunted, its voice a haunting echo of the past. Do you remember me, Lily? The air felt colder, snapping and crackling, almost electric. It took a moment for recognition to ignite a spark of dread within her. Megan? She whispered the name, fear choking her words. The girl had been a friend once, long before guilt and grief crushed that bond. You were lost in the fire. Lost? The specter spat, the words dripping with derision. You left me. Abandoned us all. The shadows shivered around her, harmonizing with the anguished wail that escaped from Megan's lips, blending with the mournful faces that loomed behind her. I tried. Lily's voice wobbled, desperation weaving through her plea. I couldn't keep everyone safe. I thought what? Megan interrupted, stepping closer, her visage shifting, flickering like a broken film reel. That running away would erase us. That pretending it didn't happen would make it disappear. Lily's gut twisted. I wanted to protect you. She took a shaky breath, trying to ground herself. I thought it would what? Megan's voice raised to a crescendo, echoing off the shadowy trees. It would save you. You're not a victim, Lily. You're the villain of your own story. The ground trembled beneath her, and Lily stumbled back, crashing into the gnarled tree. The faces nestled deep within its bark writhed, their mouths forming silent cries. Guilt flooded her system, a poison that burned. No, I wanted to help. Help? Megan grinned, a smile stretching too wide, too jagged. You fed the fire. You promised to keep it at bay. But you fed it with fear, with doubt, and now she gestured wildly to the shadows swirling rapidly around them. Now it consumes everything. Reality tilted, and suddenly, the ground beneath her morphed into fiery coals. In that split second, she could almost feel the heat licking at her skin, the weight of every action bearing down like a heavy anchor. This isn't real. She shouted, clenching her fists, pushing against the pain. The visions rippled, the shadows flickering like a candle flame. The darkness roared with laughter, mocking her futile struggle against them. It's very real, Lily, Megan hissed, her form advancing. You can't escape what you are. You aren't just facing the past, you're fighting your essence. The branches of the twisted tree creaked, splitting apart ever so slightly, revealing deeper darkness within a void that beckoned, whispered promises of relief, yet oozed despair. Lily stared into that void, fear morphing into desperation. Could she face it, or would it drag her into the abyss? The shadows tightened their grip around her, suffocating yet seductive. She was teetering on the edge, heart racing, mind swirling, but then a glimmer of a thought cut through the haze. She could stand firm. She had the power to turn the tide. Enough! She screamed, channeling all the fire, all the pain into her voice. I'm not afraid anymore. The whispers stilled, the shadows recoiling slightly as if unsure how to respond. There was a flicker in the darkness, a hesitation. Lily took a step back from the void, a step forward into herself. I will confront my truth or I will burn trying. Yet as her heart surged with resolve, she felt the ground shift beneath her again, the shadows swirling, drawing closer, a tempest of fury reawakening. Lily! Megan shrieked, arms outstretched, her form flickering violently as the darkness writhed around her like a living beast. You cannot escape it. You cannot be free. A daunting silence enveloped the forest, her words hanging in the air like a spell. But that silence morphed into something darker as she realized something worse was coming. The shadows seemed to writhe with life, and within that living nightmare, a new presence began to emerge behind the twisted tree. Something ancient, and hungry. Are you ready to see what you have awakened? It hissed, its voice low and compelling, wrapping around her like vines, pulling her closer to the edge of the unknown. Do you dare? Lily's heart dropped. What awaited her in that darkness? She had only begun to confront her demons. And now a greater terror waited just beyond the veil, ready to claim her. Lily's breath hitched in her throat. The shadows coiled tighter, the air thick with foreboding. She felt a pull, an insistent tug that beckoned her toward the dark figure that loomed like a giant within the writhing fog. It felt impossibly old, ancient in its malevolence. Who are you? She demanded, though fear cloaked her words in doubt. What do you want from me? It stepped forward, the darkness radiating from it like smoke curling off a dying flame. The figure had no discernible features, it was a mass of shifting blackness that spilled into the surroundings, absorbing the light like a bottomless pit. The whispers returned, rising and falling like a twisted melody, each note a painful reminder of her failure. I am the keeper of your despair, it intoned, the voice like gravel sliding down an endless slope. Every choice you've made, every life you've extinguished, has fed my hunger. You thought the fire was gone, but it found a home in you. Megan's spectral form flickered, her once tranquil face now morphing into a haunting mask of fury. It feeds on your regrets, Lily. You still haven't accepted it. This place, it thrives on your pain. The winds howled in response, a chorus of agony that harmonized with the baleful laughter of the trees. Lily pressed her hands to her ears, but the sounds sank deep into her skull, relentless. It was true. How many times had she been forced to relive that night? The cracks of the fire, the screams, the moments when she should have acted but stood frozen, paralyzed. "Leave me alone!" she shrieked, trying to break the hold around her. The ground pulsated violently, and visions of her past danced before her eyes, memories twisted and corrupted, like dark reflections in a shattered mirror. "Run!" someone urged, but she was unable to identify the voice over the cacophony of anguish. "No escape," the ancient figure crooned, a chilling satisfaction lacing its tone. "You are part of this, Lily. To live is to carry the weight of your sins. You can never truly be free." Before she could respond, tendrils of shadow shot toward her, wrapping around her wrists, binding her. Panic surged as she struggled against them, but the more she fought, the tighter their hold became. They burned, each touch sending waves of despair coursing through her body, each moment like a whisper reminding her of her failures. Megan's form morphed again, crumbling into 100 shadowy faces, each one a memory of someone she had lost, their eyes filled with sorrow, their mouths wide with silent screams. "We trusted you," they echoed, filling the air with a bitter gale that stole her breath. "Stop!" Lily gasped, tears slipping down her cheeks, glimmering like flecks of light in the suffocating darkness. "I didn't want any of this to happen." The ancient figure laughed, and now it was not just a voice but a physical sensation, prickling against her skin. "A truth unacknowledged is a fire that grows. Embrace the darkness, feel it fill the void. Confront what you have done, and the fire may find peace." With that, the shadows thickened, creeping closer, suffocating in their intensity. Suddenly, a memory surged back to her, a flickering image of Megan, smiling under the sun, alive and vibrant. If she could just hold on to that feeling, maybe, just maybe, and then, from the back of her mind, a horrifying realization. She had seen this before. In her dreams, in the nightmares that followed her every step. The fire was not just a memory, it was a cycle, one that would repeat until she faced the truth. "Please," she whispered, a frayed thread of hope woven through her terror. "I don't want to live like this." But as the shadows whispered her name, calling her to the depths of despair, she could feel that ominous presence draw nearer, hungry for her surrender. Was there any way to confront the all-consuming darkness without losing herself? Then, out of the depths came a guttural growl, rising from the shadows, a new terror joining the fray. What had she awakened? Lily gasped, heart racing anew as she realized she was not alone anymore. A figure, monstrous and twisted, emerged from the gloom, its eyes set on her with a predatory gaze. And it was ready to feast. Could she summon the strength to fight both her demons and the monster born from her regrets? Or would despair consume her whole? The figure lurched forward, its form shifting like smoke, fangs glistening in the dim light. Lily's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her chest, each thump echoing the cacophony of her tormented memories. The despair she had been fighting surged within her, feeding the looming monster, binding her tighter in shadows. Lily's breath quickened. "No!" she screamed, refusing to surrender. She had been running from this, hiding in the corners of her mind. But now, with the beast inches away, she felt the weight of her decisions crashing down like a tidal wave. "Face it!" Megan's voice rang out, fierce yet ethereal, cutting through the fog. "You have to face it, Lily." The darkness writhed and twisted, eager to consume her whole. But beneath the suffocating weight, a flicker of that memory ignited inside her, a fleeting warmth. Megan, alive, filled with laughter. She could almost feel the sun on her skin, the wind tumbling through her hair. "What do you really want, Lily?" The monster cooed, its voice like ice coursing down her spine. "Freedom. Forgiveness. You have to give me something. What can I give you?" She stammered, pain and confusion fighting for dominance. "What more do you want?" The creature leaned close, its foul breath warming her skin, mingling with the dread that turned her stomach. "Your despair is sweet, but only a part. I want your acceptance, your surrender to the fire that lives in you. Only then will you feel true power." With those words, the darkness pressed closer. Lily's mind spiraled. Surrender felt like giving in to the inferno. But fighting felt like a battle she would never win. The weight of the creature's gaze bore down on her, forcing her to confront her failures, a relentless parade of faces lost, moments of despair she'd rather forget. "Stop!" she cried, clenching her fists, trying to block the image of everything she had lost. "I won't let you take me." But instead of retreating, the shadows thickened, swirling around her, dragging her back into the depths of her mind's abyss. Liquid night pooled at her feet, lapping at her ankles, a gut-wrenching reminder that she couldn't escape her past. "What will it take?" she begged, desperation fueling her voice. "What do you want from me? I'm already crushed beneath the weight of my sins." "Then embrace it," the creature hissed, tilting its head, eyes gleaming with predatory delight. "Let the fire illuminate your pain. Relive every agonizing moment, and you'll find strength in the ashes." Feeling the pulse of the shadows around her, she knew surrender meant inviting destruction. The beast clawed at her, but somewhere deep down, a flicker of defiance ignited. Could she turn her pain into something powerful? Could embracing her darkness finally allow her to break free? As visions tumbled through her mind, Megan's laughter echoing, the crackling of flames, and the faces of those she lost, Lily steeled herself. She would neither flee nor yield. "I won't give up," she yelled, her voice rising above the chaos. "I'll face my past and your torment. It's not over." The monster lunged, but Lily stood her ground, strength gathering within her like a rising tide. Shadows buckled and twisted around her, and for the first time, she felt the fire within her heart beginning to blaze. And then the ground trembled, shaking with intensity. "What have you done?" the creature growled, rage bubbling in its tone as the darkness began to unravel. A pulse of light burst forth from Lily, cutting through the darkness like a blade, the shadows recoiling in anguish. Was this really the beginning of her reclaiming power, or was it just another cruel trick of the twisted entity that haunted her? But the moment hung heavy as uncertainty clung to the air. "Run!" Megan's voice called again, more insistent, pulling from somewhere deep inside her. Lily turned to flee, but the emerging light was suddenly snuffed out as the beast roared in fury, the ground splitting beneath her feet. And the darkness loomed, ready to swallow her whole once more. Would this be where she fell into despair once and for all, or could she harness the fire igniting within her? The question surged through her mind as the abyss called her name with a chilling whisper. Would she finally find freedom, or was she destined to be consumed by the darkness forever? Lily stood at the precipice of her darkest fears, trembling before the monstrous figure born of her pain. It loomed larger, casting an enormous shadow that threatened to swallow her whole. The ground quaked beneath her, the shadows swirling violently like a tempest, echoing the tumult in her heart. "You can't escape the truth," it growled, advancing with a terrifying hunger. "You must surrender to your despair." "No." The word burst from her lips, raw and powerful. Each part of her body, filled with trepidation, resisted its call. Shadows clawed at her ankles, but the flicker of lingering warmth ignited a memory of laughter, and warmth, of moments shared, was beginning to drown out the cacophony. "I am not the villain here," she shouted, locking eyes with the creature. "I am made of love and loss, just as much as I am made of fear. You have no power over my heart." As her words left her, something shifted. The shadows paused, as if the force of her defiance unsettled the very fabric of the darkness itself. She gathered every ounce of strength stewing in her being like a cauldron preparing to erupt. I am the fire. She felt it, a surge of light igniting within her, a phoenix rising from the ashes, burning brighter than before. I will take what you claim, and make it mine. With a deep breath, she summoned the raging fire inside, an inferno fueled by love and loss, and hurled it toward the beast. The golden light clashed against the suffocating shadows, crackling with energy that momentarily split the darkness in two. A bellow erupted from the figure, rage mingling with fear echoing through the forest, shaking the trees. But Lily stood firm, her heart racing with the passion of survival. I release you from this torment. Never again will you define me. The blinding light surged forward, engulfing the creature, and for the first time, she felt its grasp slacken. The shadows writhed, shrieking with a tumult of anguish, breaking apart as the truth she had long evaded cascaded around her. I was lost, she cried into the roaring chaos, but I will heal. I will remember those I have lost, and carry their stories, not in sorrow, but as a new fire, one that warms. And just like that, the darkness began to fracture, releasing its hold as the entity screeched, dissolving into the very ether of the night. I forgive myself. She shouted, voice resolute, echoing through the stillness of the forest. I will not carry this weight any longer. In that moment of defiance, a warmth enveloped her, replacing the chill of despair. The shadows shrank away, revealing the cabin beneath a silvery moonlight, the ancient trees whispering not of anger, but of peace. Lily took a moment to breathe a deep, life-giving breath. Every fragmented piece of her becoming fell into place, no longer shattered, but woven anew, a mosaic of who she had been and who she intended to be. With a heart now directing her path, she turned toward the cabin and slid open the door. Inside, the darkness faded, and the heavy weight lifting from her shoulders felt like the morning sun breaking after a long, cold winter. The room was calm now, quiet beyond the haunting whispers, as remnants of the past settled gently into acceptance. From the ashes of despair, a clearer understanding bloomed. Lily closed her eyes, envisioning the faces she had loved intertwined with hope. Megan, she whispered, I promise to remember you. An unexpected warmth surrounded her, the flickering ember of a spirit enveloping her in love. She turned to the window, gazing out at the vast wilderness. The trees now seemed welcoming, their whispers soft and kind, the past gently folding into the present. With dawn breaking on the horizon, she stepped outside. The beauty of the forest, alive and vibrant, filled her with a renewed sense of purpose. She had emerged from darkness, reborn without the chains of guilt. She would tell their stories, she would seek the light that shimmered through the trees, promising renewal. And with that, Lily exhaled, embracing the wild that had once held her captive, now free. No longer a mere spectator, she would be the voice for the lost and the guardian of her own soul. This was her moment to write a different ending. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us thrive. Flood the comments section right now with your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the fire of this journey together.